You're welcome to my channel. In this video, we are going to be talking about some of the cases in business law 2. We shall start with the case of Twycross V Grant. This case defines who a promoter is. It says a promoter is one who undertakes to form a company and takes necessary steps to accomplish it. That's the case of Twycross V Grant. Then second, we have the case of Koloro Carrying Company Limited versus West Mengo. It says a promoter's work does not end by incorporating the company only or even appointing a director. Under some circumstances, the work of promoters may continue afterwards. Then we have the case of Elanga versus New Sombrero Phosphate Company. It talks about the fiduciary position of a promoter. And the promoter owes fiduciary duties to the company. Then we have a case of Galstein versus Banis. It says that a promoter is not supposed to make secret profit when he's promoting the company. Then there is a case of Kellner versus Baxter. It talks about pre-incorporation contracts. We have the case of Guinness versus Land Corporation of Ireland. It talks about the Memorandum of Association. It was established that the Memorandum of Association contains fundamental information upon which alone the company is allowed to be incorporated. Then there is a case of Reith South Dahan Brewery Company Limited. It was held that the powers given by the Articles to issue shares of different classes resolved the uncertainty and enabled the company to do so. Then there is a case of Fisher versus Black Publishing Company. It talks about the articles in Table A that they also still govern the company even though the company has its own articles of association. Then there is a case of Hickman versus Kent and Arwell. It talks about a contract of memorandum of association and articles of association. A contract that binds the company and all the members to some extent. Then the case of Ellie versus Positive Government Security Life Assurance Company Limited. It talks about the contract of memorandum of association and articles of association as a contract that binds the company to each individual member of the company. Then the case of Rayfield versus Hunt. It talks about the contract of memorandum of association and articles of association as a contract that binds each member to each other. It was held that where the articles gave a personal right to a member, such a right was enforceable directly against another member. Then we have a case of Maogola Coffee Factory versus Chanja. It was held that to be a member of the company, there must be valid allotment of shares to the person and his name entered in the register. Then we also have a case of Salomon versus Salomon. It talks about the principle of corporate personality. The company at law is a different person altogether from the subscribers or the members. Then there is a case of Wani versus Uganda Timber and Joiners Limited. It talks about the direct liability of a company. It talks about the direct liability of a company. So a company is liable for its own debts and not the members. And if a company is in wrong, the proper plaintiff to be sued is the company and not its members. Then there is a case of Makura versus Northern Assurance Company Limited. It talks about property ownership. A company is able to own property different from the members or the subscribers. Then there is a case of Lee versus Lee and Air Farming Company Limited. It talks about the company's capacity to contract. A company can enter into a contract with any third party after incorporation. A director can also enter into a contract with a company. Then there is a case of Centum versus UCB. It talks about the company's capacity to borrow. and individual members are not liable for the company's debts. Then there is also a case of Dunlop Nigerian Industries Limited versus Forward Nigerian Enterprises Limited. It talks about lifting of the veil of incorporation. Then the case in RE FG Films Limited. It talks about where the company acts as an agent in lifting the veil under case law. It was held that the British company was no more than an agent of the American company, which was the filmmaker. Then there is a case of Guilford Motor Company versus Horn. It talks about where there has been fraud or improper conduct in lifting the veil under case law. Then we have a case of Jones versus Liebman. It also talks about where there has been fraud or improper conduct in lifting the veil under case law. There is also Williams Bros Limited and Ara versus Graham. They also talk about where there has been fraud or improper conduct in lifting the veil under case law. We have a case of Daimler Company Limited versus Continental Tire and Rubber Company. It talks about where there is public interest. Where there is public interest of lifting the veil under case law. Then we have a case of Unit Construction Company Limited versus Blaw. It talks about lifting the veil in case of determining residence of a company for tax purposes under case law. Then we have a case of Risomberello Limited. Here it talks about circumstances where one member was allowed by court to constitute a meeting, and this is in general meeting convened under court orders. Then we have a case in Uganda Idembe Publications Limited, where one person can form a quorum for meetings in certain cases. Under general meetings convened under court order. Then we have a case of Airrep International Limited. It talks about where one person was on application allowed to convene a general meeting by court, and it's in general meeting convened under court order. Then there is a case of City Equitable Fire Insurance Company Limited. It talks about the director's duty to act with skill and care. There is a case of Hogg versus Crampton Limited. It talks about the director's duty to exercise power for proper purposes. Then there is a case of Cooks versus Dix. It talks about the duty of a director to protect the company's property and not to expend them anyhow. There is also a case of Aberdeen Rail Company versus Black Bros. It talks about the duty of a director to declare conflicting interests with the company. It was stated that since a director is in a fiduciary relationship, he is not allowed to enter into any transaction in which he has personal interest. So a director has a duty to declare conflicting interests with the company. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, share with your friends, and watch my next video, which I'll be having more cases.